Bienvenidos a todos. Muchas gracias. Un placer tenerlos. Thank you very much for being here. In education, historically, we had a trend to superimpose new technologies over the current practice. However, mobile devices such as iPads, Chromebooks, laptops, ever smartphones offer unique opportunities to transform instruction and change our vision of learning. Given the flexible and ubiquitous nature of technology, not only is learning no longer confined to a physical space or design in time, but also it is no longer limited to access to content. It involves a lot more. Today, students exist in a new economy of information where they have the potential to carry a global library in their pockets. I have like two with me. With that in mind, I would like each one of you to take a couple of minutes to introduce yourselves and to give your initial thoughts as what is the future of learning? I mean, it's become so vast, so flexible, so different. And where do you see the future going? So
I get the first shot, huh?
Alejandro, you're on the spot. You're the local.
There we go. Can people hear me okay? Yeah, okay. So my name is Alejandro from Appian Education Ventures. We basically invest in two different lines. One is we invest in schools, brick and mortar, K-12 schools. And then the other branch is we invest in education startups. I think when I thought about what you read and the question here is I wanted to highlight, I think, three spaces where I see opportunities for people like the audience here who are interested in creating ideas and developing companies within kind of this new economy or the digital space. And I think those three areas are number one, communities, number two, content, and number three, enablers. So number one, when I think about communities, I think the perfect example is a school, right? So one of the schools we invest in, K-12 schools, I mean, those are great communities where you have captive audiences and you can really develop a lot of services, or you can create a lot of value by servicing and by creating this community. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a school. It could be an online community. I just heard Facebook is actually getting into the education space. This week it was announced. So it could be a lot about creating both digital and brick and mortar communities. It could be an association of engineers. So, you know, targeting communities with your products and services, I think it's a big one. The other side, I think it's content. These are the Pearsons of the world. These are the Coursera's of the world. And you know, a lot of the money in education is in content, and people are really willing to pay for content. Khan Academy is an example. Obviously, that one's free. Programming schools. There's a Platzi, I know, is in the audience, which we know well. You know, it's an example of a content provider. So that's kind of the other side. And then I think the third bucket is enablers, which is how do you connect this to? How do you connect the content with the communities? And you know, there's a ton of opportunities there. It could range from, there's, for example, a Colombian startup called On Track that is developing a system to help parents track their kids when they go to school. So, you know, that's enabling that community and making that community more efficient. Another example of a Colombian startup is CoSchool, which is trying to impart 21st century skills like leadership, teamwork, and the like, and working through schools and working through communities by kind of connecting those people. Learning management system platforms is another example of an enabler that helps connect the content side with the community. So I just wanted to leave with that thought that those are, I think, three spaces that are very interesting and that you can use as a framework to think about how do you connect one or the other, or how do you enable them.
Perfect. Valmir, your thoughts.
Okay. I'm Valmir Pereira from Mindlab, a Brazilian-Israeli company that worked on development of the social-emotional skills. What the president of Telefónica was talking about is exactly what we do. And we face this problem looking in two different ways. One way, we look for the schools, especially for K-12 schools. Today, we have something like 500,000 students, especially in Brazil, Israel, and other 25 countries. The main challenge when we look for schools, we need to face how to engage the teachers. In many of these events, I heard that the teachers do not have the profile, but we need to work with our customers. If the teacher is our customer, we need to address how to work with this teacher and how to help them to give a better class, how to be something that they love. That's the main point when you try to work with the schools. You need to understand the teachers and help them. If you are not able to help them and they feel about that, you never succeed. I see many companies from Silicon Valley that try to not go to the school via the teachers. And this is very difficult if you do not work with the teachers. That's the main challenge, and we are working on it, and we are succeeding in different countries with that solution. Also, you need to engage the students. If you are not able to engage the student, just the teacher, you will not succeed. And also, you need to be able to engage the family. Those 3 points are challenges that we need to face and overcome if you really want to succeed and be a solution that you're going to be at the school for many years. If you do not able to do that, especially in the public segment, you stay for 1 year or 2 years, and they left you. That's the main challenge we need to change. Second, when you try to work directly to the students, you need to engage. That's the main challenge. When you talk about content, about games, but you need to be able to engage the students. The student must understand that what you offer is like a game that where he wanna be. That's the main challenge. You see many solutions, beautiful solutions, that are not able to engage the student. And when we talk about engagement, it's not for just 1 week. We are talking for lifelong learning. Then you need to find a way to engage. And that is the main challenge, especially for high school students and university students. And we are doing that. We have examples. We just delivered a solution in May to work with high school students that want to go to a college. They need to make a test in Brazil. And we start in May, and today we have 200,000 students in this platform, and 10,000 of them answer every day one question. What is really proof that we are able to engage those students. That's the main challenge. When you look for lifelong learning, you need to be able to engage the students. And when I talk about the student, we are not talking about student that goes to the schools. For example, in Brazil, we have 8 million people that try to go to the college every year, but just 3 million are at the schools. 5 million of them, they are not at the schools. You see, you need to be able how to engage those students and how to overcome the difficulty they have to be with you. To do that, you must be at iPhone, you must be iPad, mobile, computer, in every place they can answer. From our perspective today in this platform, more than 50% of the students use mobile phone to come to our platform. Those are the challenges. If you look to the school, or if you look for lifelong learning, that's what we are trying to overcome. But not an easy task, but when you succeed, it's bringing you a great pleasure because you see the kids and the teachers very happy. And the teachers today, they are really, really overloaded because everything happens. You say, the teacher must do that, and the teacher must do something. They have a heavy overload, and I think Colombia could be similar to Brazil, where we have many teachers that went to the schools, and the schools are not so good, and they are not prepared to face this challenge. We need to help them how to overcome that. And I think we are doing that.
Thank you, Valmir. Gabriel, what do you think?
Yes, well, good morning.
You target from a different angle, at a different level.
We have a little different perspective. My name is Gabriel Montoya. I'm the CEO of Next University. We're essentially an online educational platform focused on providing digital skills, certifications that are in highest demand. We are modeled after a very well-known, very successful, disruptive educational model, which is Open English, that probably some of you know. We were founded by the same person, and basically we apply the success elements that we found in Open English that were very well received by the students, and they have very effective, and then we applied it to teach instead of English, digital skills. I think there's two ways really how you innovate in education. One is referred to how you bring technology into the classroom and how you improve the experience in the classroom with adoption of technology. So there's more elements to really enhance the experience. The other one is that you break out the classroom and then you bring the educational experience to the person. And that's what we do. We think that there's a way that you can bring the best teachers, the best tutors, and then bring it to wherever the person is, wherever the student is, and at whatever time the student has available, and still have a very good quality experience. And the person then has a lot of different options that being in a classroom will probably not allow. But I think beyond that, for us, the big idea, and I think the very powerful idea here is that we see that education is really the big social mobilizer, and technology is the social equalizer. So that's when you look at the intersection of those two factors, then you see, well, there is a really potential for change here, and we're seeing that with the adoption of online education. We saw in the presentation before how internet penetration and the index, the digitalization index is changing, and we're seeing that in education. Before, the alternatives to learn English, for instance, in the case of Open English, was just going to a presential school. Today, Open English has proven that that's completely different. We're seeing that now in Next University, where people that want to acquire these skills, they can do it in the convenience of home and their own schedule. So that we think is a really transformative effect that we're seeing of technology. Our model, of course, is still in development. I think we're including other elements. So that experience of getting the best tutors, the best teachers, and make them available to our students is what really makes a special experience for us.
Thank you. Greg.
Hi, I'm Greg Alpert from the Pearson Affordable Learning Fund, and we're an investment fund that's part of Pearson. So we make investments in emerging markets, and we focus on three main areas. So we look at investing in concepts that are financially sustainable, that are focused on educational outcomes, or efficacy as we call it. And then the third dimension is we're focused on low-income learners. We've invested in India, Africa. In this past January, we raised another fund, and we're now focused on breaking into Latin America and continuing to invest in the same sort of concepts in these other markets that we're in. So I think of the education market, I segment it in this way. I think of it in terms of schools, tools, and people. And so within PALF, we're investing in direct delivery or schools, education services, and we're also thinking a lot about school models. How do we transform the school model? So we're moving away from the traditional school model where you see a teacher lecturing to a group of students who are maybe not that engaged. And then in terms of the future of education, I've thought a lot about the evolution of the past 5 years. I've been working in North America, Africa, and more recently in Latin America. And when I was engaging with teachers 5 years ago, they were all talking about they wanted an iPad or they wanted a computer or a netbook. They just wanted to get hardware into the classroom. And what we've seen is that doesn't change the situation for students just by getting hardware into a classroom. It needs to be supported by software, and it needs to be supported by really strong implementation. And this goes to Valmir's point about engagement with teachers and students. One of the challenges in education is that oftentimes as an ed tech service provider, your customer might be a school or a school leader or a district, but your user is often a teacher or a student. So when you're a provider, you need to really think about the experience that you want your users to have, and then have really strong implementation to support that. And then I'll just finish with one trend that I'm seeing. So in North America, we're seeing new school models that are emerging, which is really interesting. Khan Academy has created a micro school. There's a strong charter school movement. A lot of this is happening in the Bay Area. So you see these charters who are trying to create transformational experiences and really change from more of this passive or traditional learning environment into something that is much more active, and they're just totally like rethinking the classroom.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Greg, I don't want you to let go of the microphone just yet. I wanted to follow up on a question with you. From your experience in another region like Africa, I don't like to constantly compare Latin America to the U.S. because we have very many differences and many different situations. But you've been in another continent, Africa, and with PALF, and can you tell us an example where you've reached more people, more students with one of the companies you invested, or something that a case that you can tell us about from Africa, for example?
Yeah, so Africa is a really interesting, there's a lot of different sub-markets within Africa. So we're invested in Ghana, Kenya, Tanzania, and South Africa. And one thing that we found a school in South Africa called Spark Schools, and they're the first school chain in Africa to implement blended learning. So they went to North America, they toured a number of schools, they looked at the rocket ship model, if you all have heard of that. Rocket ship has each day the students attend at least an hour in a computer lab, but within that computer lab they're working on ed tech software focused on math and literacy. So what Spark Schools did was they learned a lot from that model. They learned about the culture, and they've implemented a lot of similarities in their model, and they're having a lot of success. And I think the keys to their success are, at the end of the day, it's still about a really strong school, so it's not just about the hardware and the software. They have a relentless focus on teacher training and culture. But what they've done well is they're utilizing the data from the software that they've implemented. They're teaching their teachers how to use that data, and it's informing how they're changing instruction for specific students.
Great, thank you. That's very interesting. Valmir, you spoke a lot about engagement and how important that is. And if I don't remember correctly, one of the challenges of deploying Mindlab in Brazil was connecting with the teachers and training the teachers to become a different kind of actor in a classroom to transform the way the classroom interacted. So can you tell us a bit on how you did that, how you overcame that challenge of making this multiplier effect through the different states in Brazil?
This was our main challenge, because when we start in Israel, we use our teachers. But when you think about Brazil, if we try to use our teachers, it will be crazy, because the population and the number of the schools in Brazil compared to Israel is completely different. And we use reasoning games to apply our methodology, and the teachers do not have this kind of knowledge. Then we need to create a system that we are able to train the teachers. We give them an initial 24 hours training, and monthly we come back to the school to work with them. This was a huge challenge, because 70% of our customers in Brazil are public systems. And if the teachers don't like that, they abandon. That's it. And nobody has the power to say to them, use it, because they are government employees like everywhere. Then we find a way to engage this teacher. They understand, they feel when he's training, this initial training, that the methodology helped them also to develop their social-emotional skills. using our methodology. Then the first movement that we got is the teacher feel how we improve the person. And he, as a teacher, find a way to work with the students. He first understand that he's help him to improve their skills. And second, when he work with the student love it because we use games, and they work with the students closely. That's creating a situation where, because many times the student don't like the teacher because he's far away from the teacher that gives math or language, something like that, because we use the teacher from the school to give our methodology. And also, the teacher finds that the student love our methodology and he has the opportunity to be closer to these students. Then we create a situation where we have a growth for the teacher and for the student, and both love this experience. And that's why we are able to succeed in the public schools, because it is a huge challenge to engage those teachers and also those students. In the beginning, we used physical games, and now we are using digital games because we are improving in our country the infrastructure that we have at the schools. Mainly we are physical, but we are able to give 100% digital for the students. And more than that, we work also with the family, because we give to the students a booklet to work with the family, like the president of Telefone was talking, how to engage the family. Then we create a situation where the teacher loves, the student are really engaged, and we bring the family closer to the schools. In the reality, we don't believe that we can improve the schools if we are not able to bring the family to be closer. That's the way we develop our solution. Now, we have the training, we have a blended learning that the teacher can use the technology at home and also can use the technology at the class with the students. That became more easier to the teacher to improve themselves and also use it with the students. That help them to give for them the rules of some games are very complicated, and with videos is better, and also funny rules for the students, they love it. That way we are able to engage the students. The problem is this cost too much to be at the schools every month. But we are improving with the blended that we can lower the cost. That's what we are fighting, to lower the cost, to be able to give the solution for much more students all over the world.
Right now, how many students are being trained by Mindlab programs in Brazil?
In Brazil, 400,000, and in Israel, another 100,000. In other 25 countries, we have another 50, 60,000. What's happening? We proved our methodology work everywhere, and now we are in the process to scale up, because in places like US or Europe, it's very difficult to take the teacher to give a personal training. Then we're going to use the blended learning, and also we are able to use digital games instead of physical games.
Wow, that's an impact. So 500,000 students are being trained in non-traditional skills. Those are 500,000 lives that are going to be a bit different,
And we have the research that proved that we improved those abilities. We did the research in China, Turkey, Italy, Israel, Brazil, and England.
Fantastic. So, Gabriel, how do we do that for older students? How do we transfer that into, how do we multiply the great teachers with Next University?
Yes, I think, that there's a very good point there, because, what we focus on is, I said before, that we believe that education is a big social mobilizer, and that technology is equalizer. So what we see is the opportunity to give people a new skill, the opportunity in a very short cycle to really insert themselves in this growing digital economy. And that's where, it was mentioned before, that's where the job opportunities are growing. That's where what the future really is going to be. I mean, any company today is an internet company. Whether you acknowledge it or not, you are. You have to, no company can deny that their presence online, how they approach their customers, how they serve the customers, how they do business, I mean, is moving more and more towards digital. So that's a reality, and that's not going to change. That's only going to continue growing. So we need to prepare our workforce for that. So what we do is that we create an opportunity for people that otherwise wouldn't have a chance because they're working, they have a family, they don't have the economic, it takes a big investment in time and money to go to a traditional college and get a degree in one of these digital skills. So what we do is that we simplify that and we provide entry-level skills that people can acquire, and then they can transform their lives and then insert themselves in this economy. So we have, again, a lot of experience. Open English as through a similar model that we kind of look after. They have graduated over 300,000 students, so we know it works. And then we're seeing now a tremendous interest of our students because they have the opportunity to really learn at their own pace, but at the same time they have the advantage of having tutors available all the time that are going to help them through the learning process. I mean, a lot of the different content providers that exist, go from watching a YouTube video online that is free to obviously all the services that you have to pay and are more involved. And we believe that the learning experience has to be curated in some way that you cannot. I mean, a lot of people, maybe smart people, very motivated people, they can go online and watch a bunch of videos on YouTube and learn how to develop apps. But for the majority of the people, they need certain structure. They need a curriculum that is designed in a way that is going to get them from point A, meaning they don't know anything, to point B, whereas they are proficient at least at a basic level in that skill. And that's what we do. We provide that experience through our platform, again in a very affordable and very convenient way for the students. So that transforms lives because we think as more people have that opportunity, and we're seeing it already in some of our students. They graduate, they start their own companies, they get different jobs. Corporations are now paying attention and they're using our platform to train their employees because they know also that they need to continuously keep upgrading the skills of their employees. One example is Tigo Millicom. We just announced yesterday the partnership. We have a number of their employees in different countries that are now training on these different skills, web development, Android app development, etc. And they're using that because they know that their workforce has to be fluent in these languages, and that's what's really, I think, making a difference.
Thank you. That's very good. And just a small follow-up. The ratio of completion of the courses is have you analyzed how it compares to how many people complete their studies in college compared to the completion rate of your courses?
Well, we don't have a lot of data for college. We compare to what we know best, which is, again, Open English. And, in our case, it's higher because people have a bigger motivation to do this and to complete this. And they want the certification and they want to go through the process and really acquire the skills. There's a higher sense of purpose when people embark in something like this than just acquiring other skills that are less tangible. Here's very specific. I mean, they're going to learn to develop an app, you're going to learn to do this, and then that's going to help them with the project they have in mind, that's going to help them get that job they want or change their life. So that is a big motivator. And this is, we're dealing with adults, that they're choosing on their own to do this. So that obviously is a big factor in increasing that percentage of completion.
Great. Alejandro, changing back a little bit the subject into the future of learning. What's the future going to hold for us? You mentioned three trends, or you think that it depends on three main aspects. What do you think is missing today in Colombia within those three main pillars to take learning into the sort of next era?
I think what's missing, and it's actually a little bit of what we look for when we invest in companies, is really knowing your market, really knowing your customer, really doing your research.
We don't necessarily want you to divulge your thesis, but
No, but, so I'll give you an example. I was reading recently this really successful app in the US called Class Dojo. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but the guys didn't start by saying, hey, let's create an app where teachers can give points to the kids that behave well or badly, but they actually said, hey, there's an opportunity in the classroom The teacher is the leader of the classroom, and that's where a lot of the opportunity lies, which I agree with that. So let's go on interview, and they literally went out and interviewed 500 teachers. Not 10, not 100, 500. And said, what are your key issues, or what are your key problems in the classroom? And by a long shot, the biggest problem teachers had issues with were behavior in the class, and how do I incentivize kids, and how do I communicate to the parents that this may be an issue, how do I engage the administration, the parents, and the teachers. And then they created this app called Class Dojo, and lo and behold, it's now being used by 50% of public schools in the US. And so that's an example, and I think that translates into really creating what I call a secret sauce. So it's, I was in this investment panel recently, and out of 15 ideas, maybe 10 of them were what I call a copycat, right? So, hey, Class Dojo worked in the US, let's create the Colombian Class Dojo. Really, what's that secret sauce that you're creating? What's preventing the teachers from using Class Dojo as opposed to your Colombian Class Dojo? So really do your research and think about, what is what's preventing a random entrant or someone that has really deep pockets and that can really spend a lot in advertising from taking the business from you. So you have to develop that. And I think that secret sauce has to do a lot with really knowing your customers. So either know your community or know the content or know what you're enabling, but make sure you understand there's a problem or a brecha, as the president of Telefonica was calling it, and let's address that. But let's first do the research on what that community or what that people need before you actually go out and do the whole development process.
That's good. Does anybody agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, I'll just make a comment. So I was visiting schools yesterday in Lima and went into a classroom, and I swear that the teacher started teaching once we entered the classroom. Before the kids were just hanging out, having a good time, like in a 2-hour block of math class. And the teacher saw us come in, and he's like, oh, God, I got to now teach them about, hypotenuses and the Pythagorean theorem. So I think that, you can't take Class Dojo. If you guys have seen this app, it's a beautiful app. It's got an amazing user experience. But you couldn't take that, and it would not work in that context. So to your point, you need to think in context and what can work in that classroom. I don't know exactly what would work in that classroom, but maybe it's something like what Valmir is doing, focusing on critical thinking or social and emotional skills, something different than just taking something that is sexy or gotten a lot of traction in a different market.
That is very true. Valmir, do you care to comment a bit more on Alfonso mentioned engaging the whole society, the community. You mentioned, we discussed the teachers and a bit the parents, but how do parents face this transformation of future learning with their kids when they really have no idea? They've been educated in a very different way, and now some might be technologically savvy, but others may well not be. And we need the next generations to be better, right?
Yeah. First of all, when you talk about public schools, in the case of Brazil, normally the people that send the students to the public school, the people is from class D or E. They are poor people. Normally, the kids from the family are in the higher level of schools than the parents. That's the reality. In most of the connection that we do today between the students and family are with physical books and physical games, because that's the reality. Okay? What we feel is, because play games, everybody can play games. And what's happening is that the student teach the parents how to play the game. And normally, the parents has difficult to understand, but what is the value that they work together? When you go to the family and you ask about that, they say, oh, I'm really proud because I see that my kid knows more than me because I do not have the opportunity to go to the school. Second, what we see in many locations, that sometimes the parents came to the school and say, help me to play with my kids, and talk to the teacher to help them. I heard from one principal in a school in a poor place that she told me, I work in education for more than 30 years. And with the experience of Mindlab was the first time that the family came to the school and said, help me to understand the game, to work with my students, my kids. And that makes the connection with the family. You know, it's a small pill. But we are bringing the family to be closer to the school. With the technology that is becoming more and more feasible, we believe that this event will be in a better scale. What's important? What the solution that we do, that anyone can play the games, use what we tell, because if you are able to use your mobile phone, you are able to use our technology. There is no difference because our solution is created for this kind of people. We are not creating for high-level people. That's our challenge is how to do that. And we are succeeding, and we'll start to do digitally with the family next year, and we'll see the results. But we believe, because today the school do not have the computer, but the student has the mobile, and maybe 50% of them has a smartphone. And then we are connecting with the student. Today, we are trying to create a situation that we are able to connect direct with the student via the mobile phone. That's the beauty of the new era that we are facing. And we believe in 2-3 years we're going to see great results. That's why we are now coming from Latin America to use this digital solution, because it's easier to scale up.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to change a little bit the perspective of my questions now. And it's for anyone that wants to take it. There's two of you are entrepreneurs, two of you are investors. Investors look for a return on their investments. Entrepreneurs look to be successful and make their business sustainable over time. This transformation in education, I think it's key to make it sustainable. It's very difficult to make this transformation happen supported by the governments purely. We need to do it in conjunction with them, in cooperation with them, but not dependent on them. Would you guys care to venture your opinions on that, on how sustainability and the relationship, or what should the market expect from government support in transforming education with technology? Whoever wants to take.
Yeah, I think, we believe there's a fundamental factor here that is at play, which is, what is the shelf life of a skill? And going back to what Alfonso was saying before about the competencies and what universities and regulated, accredited educators are doing, and then what's happening in the market. And what has happened is that, 20 years ago, you would go to college and those skills would last you for your whole career. And then you learn something and then you were set for life, pretty much. Now that shelf life is only 5 years. So that means that people, in order to stay where the market is going, they have to reskill. And then, so that cycle has become shorter and shorter and shorter. The problem is that, when the government is involved and traditional educational, institutions are involved because of regulations and accreditation processes, that cycle is very slow. And again, I'm not criticizing that, it's just, it's the way it is. And then what is happening is that in order to really address that gap, you need to create processes that those cycles are more shorter. And that's, where, options like what we're offering come into play, because then, you can get immediate feedback from the market, what are the skills that are needed, what are the job opportunities, and then you can create the competencies so people can acquire them quickly and they can move in that direction. So I think to be sustainable, you have to keep that in mind. And what that's going to do is that's going to keep forcing educational systems in that direction, because everybody needs to understand that there things are, we hit an inflection point, that technology is changing everything faster, and then we need to keep up with the pace. So that's, I think, is going to be a fundamental transformation that is going to happen in the future of education.
So at PALF, we think a lot about how do our investments interact with the government. You know, we're a fund with $65 million. It's a very limited amount of capital to really impact at a system level. So we think of our investments standing alone and being sustainable in their own right, but we also think about them delivering higher quality outcomes at a lower cost than how much it requires the government to serve the same sort of educational outcomes. So in South Africa, we have our school chain that has 4 schools, is serving a couple thousand learners. That's not going to create a systemic change, you know, if we're just working on our own behalf. So we need to figure out a way to work with governments and be a guiding light and show that you can reduce the cost, you can have much higher quality outcomes, and then hopefully the government will step in and learn from our example or collaborate with us.
Right. I think those are 2 great examples. We'll use the last few minutes for some questions from the audience. Normally, how much time it takes professors to appropriate the new educational strategy based in technology with each one of the different strategies from all 4 speakers? I don't know who wants to take this. This was from Andre Felipe Rodriguez Bonilla.
I can answer. In our case, like I said before, to use our technology is like use mobile phone. There is no barrier for the teachers of the kind of knowledge. Then, with this 24 hours initial training and 2 to 4 hours monthly support, we are able to work with common teachers that has a lot of limitations. People, in the case of Brazil, teachers' age comes from 40 to 53 years, most of the teachers, maybe 60% of those teachers. And they learn. We help work with them, and they learn because they see the value, and it is possible. What I see in other situations, they have great solution, but it's not easy for the teacher to use. Then they have this barrier. That's the main problem. And with our solution, we do not have this kind of problems. Similar to physical or digital, we do not have problems. Okay, please.
Right. Gabriel, it seems the public is very interested in teachers, and this one's specific to you. How do you recruit all the teachers? Are they crowdsourced, or do they bring them in as part of your in-house team? How do you assure that teachers maintain the high-quality standards that you need? Carolina Fonegra.
Yes, the way we recruit teachers is that we use companies that are practitioners, that are usually consultancy firms, that they are in the market developing projects on the different topics for real clients. So they have experience in the real world. And what we do is that we enable them to be our tutors, our teachers to our platform, because we create, just like the students, they have the convenience of the time and the place where they can do this. We also create a system where these tutors can also dedicate some of their time to support our students. So we take people that are actually practicing their skills in the real world, that they're experts in this. They have obviously a background. They're educated in the subject matter, but they're also doing things in the real world. And then through this platform that we created, they can connect with our students.
Great, and you're the popular guy today. One of the biggest challenges in student dropout is the kind of models. How do you manage this for Next University, and what kind of rates are normal in Colombia, for example, in Open English?
Yes, so this is what, in this type of business called churn. I mean, people that enroll in something and then they drop out after a while. I think engagement is always a continuous challenge. As I mentioned before, that people, when they make a decision to do this, they have a higher than usual motivation to complete. However, life gets in the way. And there's many things that you can do. We have people that reach out to our students, and they let them know that they haven't been, we can track their progress in the platform. We can track how often they sign up and they study, how well they're doing. And then we have a combination between advisors that follow up with them via email, via calls, and also the tutors that are always present, saying, hey, I haven't seen you in a while, and then they send them a bit of information, and they send them something to try to keep them engaged. The result of that is that we see lower dropout rates that we have seen at Open English. The typical percentage, I don't know the exact numbers of Open English today, but the average is probably like a number like 5% or something like that. We're seeing numbers that are lower than that. And they keep trending down, which is good. As we grow and increase our number of students, that we're seeing those numbers dropping off. And part of that is because we also offer the students the opportunity to acquire credits towards the next certification. So once they pass the first 3-4 months of studying, wait, something's
Fire drill.
They once they overcome the initial, let's say 3-4 months, then they can become more engaged. And then what we're trying to do is create tools for give them incentives to continue acquiring more skills. And that, is a big incentive to keep them and retain them.
I want to give just a chance to one more question, not to you, Abel, this time, to you, Valmir. Mindlab, how do you evaluate the development of the social-emotional skill? And what do you think is the correlation between social-emotional skill and 21st century skill or global citizen skills, if there is a difference among some of those?
Could you repeat the question, please?
How do you evaluate the development of the social-emotional skill? I think that's the main question. And then what correlation do you think there is between social-emotional skills and 21st century skills or global citizen skills, which may be the same in a way?
Same. In my opinion, the same. Yeah. How we measure? We are working on it. We did maybe at this time, maybe 10 or 15 research in different places. Normally, we teach the social-emotional skills. There is no content of nothing, just the social-emotional skills. But we measure the improvement in math, science, and language. And we did this in different countries, and it's possible to make the connections that you are able to improve sometimes 40% more than you are able to do without our methodology. That's the way. What we are working today also is we are planning to make a new research. We're going to work with the IDB to do this research, maybe not only in Brazil, to work in the social-emotional skills like PISA does today, okay? Just measuring the social-emotional like PISA does today with an independent company, with a group of control we're going to do for the next year. We already test the social-emotional skills, but it's difficult to compare. We just compare with ourselves, okay? The beginning of the year, at the end of the year, and we show that. But the next research we're going to do in a strict way of the university to prove that we are able to improve the skills with our methodology, to be able to discuss with university. Because always when you talk about research, somebody says, but how can you say that if you something, then we need to be, and also the problem that we have with the schools don't like to say 50% of the students use the methodology and 50% do not use the methodology, because they say that's cause problem for the students that do not have the methodology. Then they don't want to do. Then we need compared to other schools. That's, that's education problem, and we are working to help and solve the problem. Okay.
Great. Thank you very much to all of you, Alejandro, Valmir, Gabriela, and Greg. It was great having you, and I'm sure that throughout the day there's going to be a lot more questions for you. Thank you for the audience for asking a lot of questions. There were some I couldn't ask, but very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.